Right.
Sorry about that, Rav.
Yeah. I have a question, Rabbi Asher. I want to know how you feel about something. So I think that converts shouldn't be expected to be 100% observant. I think that if they have a good level of observant, I'm not just talking about like basil and lox. I'm talking about like they're like fairly like really good level of observance, but let's say like they keep kosher at home, but they go out to a vegetarian restaurant, or they use the phone on Shabbos. They're just they observe everything, but they don't keep everything 100%. Because they're human beings and maybe it's hard on them or it just isn't a priority or whatever it may be, whatever the reason is. I think they should still be able to get an Orthodox or very, very good recognized conversion. Mm-hmm. I think that Judaism shouldn't be about keeping 100% of the rules. I think it should be about loving the Jewish people and connecting with Judaism.
That's a powerful statement, what you just said. That's a really powerful statement. Thank you for saying that.
Do you feel the same way about unaffiliated Jews coming closer to Torah?
I feel the same way. I think that it's wrong to expect somebody to be like 100%. I think that people should connect with Judaism the way that they personally connect with it, and that Judaism means different things to different people. I actually have a lot of secular friends, and I hear what Judaism means to them. And Judaism is different things to different people, and how everybody connects with it is a personal thing. And if, like Shabbos is something different for you than it is to like an Orthodox Jew, I think that's okay. Does that mean you can't be Jewish because using your phone on Shabbos is like not using your phone on Shabbos isn't a priority to you? Does that mean you shouldn't be allowed Jewish status? I think that's wrong.
Okay. Conversions, according to the Talmud, really took about a day. The examples we have of people wanting to convert, the famous story of 3 individuals who came to Hillel and Shammai to convert them. It says that Hillel converted them miyad. He converted them right away, and then he taught them Torah. This teaches us that you're not liable for breaking any of the mitzvot if you don't know they exist. Well, this is also a principle for secular Jews. If secular Jews don't know that an actual mitzvah exists, then the court is not going to hold them liable because they don't know any better. It's really doing an avera b'shogeg. You're doing an avera by mistake versus b'mezid, intentionally. And this is something that many mystics overlook. Intention matters in Judaism regarding keeping mitzvot and keeping halachot. But that doesn't mean that once you know the law says X, you then choose to do Y. There's no point in becoming Jewish like that because you're delaying the redemption. That's the whole purpose. Again, the purpose of becoming Jewish is to push Israel closer to the redemption. What does the Geula mean? It means us entering Eretz Israel in a proper manner and building a proper Jewish state and being an Or LaGoyim, a light for the nations, and that's it. So if someone wants to keep Judaism in their own manner, they don't have to convert, right? I mean, it would benefit them and it would benefit us for them not to convert. Again, God in Torah never made a distinction between mitzvot. The same God who said don't eat pork is the same God who said don't murder. It's really wrong for us to pick and choose what we want to keep. We have to keep it all. Now, if you're not aware of a particular mitzvah, it's not going to be held against you. But you're telling me that people know that they should be keeping Shabbos, but they're not. Now, you gave the example of using your phone on Shabbos. There's many rabbis who teach that electricity is not fire. Now, they may prohibit it for other reasons, but there's a famous rabbi, he passed away already. He wrote a book called Minchat Shlomo. His name is Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, and he attacked every notion how electricity could be forbidden on Shabbat. And then at the end of his thesis, he proves that electricity is not forbidden to be used on Shabbat, but he chooses not to use it because it's his minhag not to use it, his custom not to use it. So this shows that electricity is not technically prohibited on Shabbat. There's many other people, the Tzitz Eliezer. I have a whole video about this that you guys can look at it. It's called Light Bulbs on Shabbat. If that's what you think breaking Shabbat is, then there are other opinions that you can go by and still feel that you're keeping Shabbat, because clearly they didn't have electricity back then. So it's a nuance that we have to deal with nowadays. If someone wants to drive on Shabbat and the car is not electric, it's a combustion engine, that's a problem. There's also some people who've developed cars that you could drive on Shabbat. I remember when I lived in Israel, the yeshuva I lived in, the truck, the bitachon mobile, worked on Shabbat, but it had a Shabbat switch that would engage the engine with a shinui, with a change that it wasn't how it's traditionally done. And according to this organization in Israel called Summit that creates all these things like the Shabbat switch and all this stuff, it was kosher. So to quote Rav Arn Rakefet, if there's a rabbinic will, there's a halachic way.
So you wouldn't convert somebody who said they were going to, for example, work on Shabbat?
No, not at all.
That would be just an absolute affront. I mean, that would be an avera. That would be just
Yeah, but what if someone said they had to work on Shabbat? I'll give you an example. I have a friend, and he's got a job that if he didn't have that job, he basically would not be able to have any other job. I don't want to say the circumstances, but basically, so he has to work on Shabbat. That's what he's trained for. That's the job he has. That's the job he needs to have. So he's forced to work on Shabbat. By the way, he's a foreign Jew. So what if someone had to work on Shabbat, but they observed Shabbat in other ways, like when they came home, they ate Shabbos food, they lit candles, whatever their thing was. So would you say you can't be Jewish because you got to pay your bills and you got to work on Shabbat? I'm just bringing up this example.
No, you could be Jewish.
You can't have your wish to be Jewish.
So in the 20s and 30s, this was a reality in America. There's many people in New York. When the Jews came to New York, Orthodox Jews had to work on Shabbat because they had to survive. That's one thing. But you're choosing a Jewish lifestyle, which means that the goal is for you to move into a Jewish community, put your kids in Jewish schools, start making more money so you can afford tuition and kosher food. But suddenly you expect the rabbi to convert you knowing that you're going to work on Shabbat. Converting to Judaism, I do acknowledge it's a right, but being that the consequence of you doing this under the title Jewish is hurting the Jewish people collectively because this is delaying the Geulah. Technically, nowadays, no one technically has to work on Shabbat. Okay? You could find another job. You'll probably have to find a smaller house and this and that, but it's very rare that someone is like facing things like life and death because they are forced to work on Shabbat, right?
I disagree with you. A lot of people, it's very hard. A lot of people are not that well educated and or whatever, don't have a lot of options where they live, stuff like that. We are very fortunate. I don't know where you live in New York. People, I think, are more fortunate, but I think a lot of people don't have it that easy. Don't have a lot of housing options. Don't have a lot of work options.
There's no rush to convert. People should wait till they have their stuff in order somewhat. What if he has
So you're
some
saying
fiber for
only people
cheeseburgers?
who are well off should convert? Only people who have good financial status, only people who have good work options should convert? Only people who have their lives, what are you saying?
I also don't think that people should be a burden on the Jewish community. And this is something that all rabbis believe. Most rabbis don't convert you. Well, they'll ask you, if you work for a living. Because the last thing they want is another person they're obligated to support. Because coming out of Shachar every morning, there's tons of people asking you for tzedakah. You want to double that just by converting anyone who wants to convert? No. You have to learn to walk before you can run. Judaism, being Jewish, is honestly not for everybody. Absolutely not. Now, if you're serious about it and you live in a place that you can convert, for example, in America, you can convert. In South America, you can't convert. But in America, you're able to choose your job somewhat. And if not, then prolong your conversion. Keep mitzvot as much as you want. Keep Shabbat as much as you want. But you want your certificate and to work on Shabbat at the same time, I think you're asking too much. Yeah.
So I work in healthcare, and I have to every 6 weeks I have to do 24 hours over a weekend. So I can't convert.
That's different. There's Orthodox rabbis who are doctors who work on Shabbat.
Yeah, I know. I work for one of them.
Okay.
But I mean, you're saying you wouldn't convert someone that works on weekends.
No. Wait, hold on. Wait a minute. If there's patients that rely on you, that their life is on the line, you're commanded to work on Shabbat. That's an exception.
It doesn't go for nurses. Are you a nurse or are you a doctor?
I'm a nurse practitioner, and I have full rights. I can write prescriptions and everything. I can do everything.
It goes for nurses as well. There's emergency room nurses. There's the whole Hatzalah movement. I mean, how many guys in the synagogue don't walk around with a walkie-talkie on Shabbat when everyone will consider that muksa? I have no issue pulling up in a Hatzalah van. There's an exception. It's not even an exception. This is the halacha. If anyone else's life could possibly be in danger, we break Shabbat without even thinking twice. However, if you work in a shoe factory and you still want to convert, working on Shabbat, that's already, I think that you should first find another job, but get your finances in order, and then convert. That's it.
Not everybody is that privileged. You're speaking from a place of privilege.
Not everyone is meant to be Jewish. Well, I'll tell you.
Nonsense.
I mean,
it's just this is a whole BLM nonsense. It's like everything's privileged now.
Now you're being racist.
Okay.
Nonsense. Garbage.
Here, look, well, not everyone has to convert to Judaism, okay? Being Jewish nowadays is very expensive. Absolutely. And I encourage everyone after they convert to move into a Jewish community, unless you're going to start their own community. If you want to go to Montana and build a synagogue, a beautiful synagogue, even if you don't have a minyan, fine, you're making an effort. But to feel that the Jewish community has to in some way kowtow to your situation, I'm all for Jews being open. If anything, the right thing the Jews should do is help you find another job, but not tolerate you working on Shabbat with a keep on, just to see people driving around. In this day and age, in the 20s, it may have been different. Okay. In Israel, in the early stages of the state of Israel, they wouldn't give you a red card, which would allow you to work unless you worked on Shabbat. Those are different circumstances. In today's day and age, if you're going to convert and live in a Jewish community and expect to drive, I mean, heck, there's going to be people walking to shul. They're going to see you driving to work. I think it's better. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, Rabbi. Wouldn't it be more of a privilege that we should expect you to change the rules just to fit me in? You get what I'm trying to say? That
No, I
to
think
change
that's more
the rules-
problematic.
Yeah,
Right.
it is more problem. That is the real privilege, wouldn't it be?
Hey, look, I'll tell you, the Torah doesn't make this exception. Rabbinic Judaism does make the exception of even saving a life, putting Shabbat on hold to save a life. The Torah doesn't even make exceptions. This is why Karaites and Sadducees, I am of the opinion that Sadducees did keep halakha to a certain extent, but people who didn't keep oral law would allow someone to die instead of violating Shabbat. So the actual ikr of the Torah is don't break Shabbat for anything. Now the rabbis step in and they give a leniency to save a life. Now we want to extend that to include, my boss won't get me off on Saturday. Come on. If we keep on changing Judaism, we're going to end up with something that doesn't resemble what we started off with, okay?
But born Jews can do that, but converts can. See, the rules are different for born Jews than they are for converts.
No, born Jews can't do it either. I mean, what do you... Okay,
But born
if
Jews do it every single day.
Orthodox Jews break
Born
Shabbat...
Jews. I'm not talking about Orthodox Jews. Most of the world is not Orthodox.
All right,
Like what,
so
10%
born Jews...
of America's Orthodox?
Okay. So born Jews who don't keep Torah are not Jewish.
That's not true.
They're Jewish in the sense that their Kiddushim is valid, but they're not in any covenant with God, and none of this applies to them because they don't believe in mitzvot. They haven't
That's
accepted
not
mitzvot.
true.
All right, next.
Yeah,
And we disagree.
We're this is a serious conversation here.